Leadership in all instances, for it to be effective, it has to start with a vision. In my case, I was very lucky because the vision did not only start from within myself, but even my parents. They had this belief that when we grow up, we've got to do some commercial jobs, some bookkeeping jobs, so that we could be successful and work in offices. And from there, it started to graduate to the next level, where we got exposed, for instance, to the first black to qualify as a chartered accountant, Professor Wiseman Nkutlo, because then he had a firm in Mthatha called W.N. Nkutlo and Company. My elder brother then started to see that there is a profession called chartered accountancy, which was building on to the vision that my parents and my mother had in particular. And we started to work like that until somebody qualified as a CA. But then where the vision came in terms of the success of the firm is to understand that you want to use the qualification that you have to create a platform, to train other chartered accountants, to offer service to black businesses, and really be the light that our country needed at that particular time. By the time I qualified, it was very clear to me that I did not have time to waste. There were very few opportunities that were for us at the particular point in time. And secondly, the people who were aspiring to follow suit in terms of becoming chartered accountants had no way in which they could actually register for articles. And the delay in the economic growth of the black SMME was actually delayed because there was no one who could actually offer a professional service that would enable them to prosper to the next level of the economy. So because the vision was planted on earlier, immediately after I qualified and passed and did my articles, I completed everything in December 1992, and by 1 January 1993, I had already started with my business and played the leadership role that I played. But it all started with that vision, hence it was easier then to start to take the first foot forward timelessly. For you to be a successful leader, you also need to be brave. If you are not brave, you are not going to succeed. For instance, if you want to start anything, you will be chartering unknown territories. And therefore, there's lots of uncertainties, there's lots of fears, and anything else that can scare you away from your vision or from where you want to lead people to. So in my case then, it was even important because when the practice was started in January 1993. That was even before the democratic South Africa. So the number of unknowns were very many, including who is going to support us, where will we get the funding, where will we even get the intellectual capital, because remember, I was the second black chartered accountant to qualify, so therefore there were very few other people you could tap into that could actually assist you to move forward with the business, even the access to markets. Who were we? People were not even aware that there were CAs at that level. So who was going to open doors for us then? So there were a lot of uncertainties that were there, and therefore you have to be brave. And I'm very pleased to say, I think being brave and lack of fear has enabled us to break down a number of doors, has enabled us to achieve things that we would not have achieved, and have enabled us to plow or sow trees whose shade we are not going to enjoy in areas where trees were never plowed or they were never sowed before. Leadership is also about patience, because if you want to start something and you want to succeed, you're not going to do it within a bank, within one strike, and therefore you're there. When we started the practices a long time ago, there were no clients for us. And therefore, the first clients that we had were box shops. In case you don't understand box shops, it's when clients gives you their books stacked in a big box, and all you have to do is to take this box, look for bank statement, look for invoices, and start to develop records on the basis of that, versus the most complex accounting systems that are available, that are computerized, which you can only find in successful businesses. So we started with box shops. Our major clients were attorneys' trust accounts. We had doctors' practices. If you had a KFC franchise that you had available, or an engine garage, that sounded like what today you would call, I'm auditing a Woolworths. To us, that's what it was at the time. But we knew it was the steps that we had to take in order to achieve our objective. As they say, a marathon begins with one step. Every step counts. Every activity counts until you finish your marathon. As a leader, for you to succeed, you also need some sense of agency. If you don't have a sense of agency, some actions do not get taken. My favorite quote that has led me in my leadership journey was by the late Benjamin E. Franklin, which says, "Those who have been left behind in the race of life should either run faster or they shall forever remain behind." If you are a leader, you must always keep those words in mind, because if you are starting and the race has already begun, you don't have the luxury of relaxing and saying, "I will procrastinate, I will do it at some other time," because you are always driven by the sense of agency. From the sense of agency comes the adrenaline. Combination of adrenaline and sense of agency will yield you results as an excellent leader. One of the critical success factors for effective leadership is excellent stakeholder management, because somewhere along the line, given all the input you are making, you do need your stakeholders to be supportive of what you are doing and be able to usher you or open doors for you. But I need to warn you, that doesn't happen always. It's a once in a while that you can get, and you must utilize it optimally. When we started as a firm, we were dealing with box shop, and therefore we were small accounting practice. Although we were not comfortable with that, but that's what was available for us at the time. And one of my favorite quotes that I learned when I was young is that you rather fill up your stomach with stale bread whilst you're looking for fresh bread than to die looking for fresh bread due to starvation. And therefore, the small jobs that we were doing were a stepping stone towards what we wanted to achieve. And during that period, in our stakeholder management spaces, we were talking to the new government post-1994 to see if they can understand our plight as the chartered accountants in South Africa, who were few, who had less opportunities, and to see what is it that could be done to enable us to access opportunities that we could not access before. And we were very grateful, and we're still grateful today, because the late Minister Stella Stau, who was the Minister of Public Enterprises at the time, understood us. And during that process, she decided that as the black firms, we should also have equal access to the audit of state-owned companies that were previously done by the big five firms at the time. They were still the big five firms. And therefore, from June 1996, we were asked to start the audit of Transnet, the audit of SAA, the audit of Spornet, and all the important state-owned organizations, followed by Eskom, followed by Denel, because then it was her belief and vision that if doors are not being opened for the black firms, therefore we will never be able to succeed and will never act the role we're supposed to act. And I can safely say today, which is more than 20 years later or 23 years later, the foundation for the vibrant auditing profession sector, which is owned by the South African companies, started then, and it became our pillar of success, our strength, and hence we are here today. As a leader, you have to be continuously alert to the fact that whatever strategy you have, however brilliant it is, it can only be executed through people. So people are the major component that will enable you to achieve what you need to achieve. And therefore, in our case, we had to make sure that we're able to recruit the right people, we're able to give them the right level of training, and we're able to retain them. Because if you fail to retain people, you are unable to grow as a firm, because you recruit them, you take 10 steps forward by training them, but the moment you lose them, it's like you take 20 steps backward, and it actually delays the progress of the growth of the firm or the achievement of the objectives that you have. So we had to go to universities, we had to compete with the big four firms, and we had to make sure that when we recruit the right talent, we are not only giving them benefits that that anyone else could compete for, we had to give them something that they would never have found anywhere else. In this case, it was a sense of purpose. A lot had to be done to redress the intellectual landscape of the accountancy profession in South Africa, and that we could not do on our own. We had to involve other young and upcoming black chartered accountants or aspirational black CAs to make sure that they buy into the vision, they buy into the sense of purpose, and therefore they join us in the struggle, not the physical struggle, but the intellectual struggle to understand and participate effectively in the intellectual debates that are taking place in our country and be able to move forward the growth of the businesses that needed our support due to level of skill that we could actually put into their businesses. When you are a leader, you have to make sure that you are making visible strides. Because if you are a leader that doesn't show the progress that has to be achieved or that has been achieved, or the footprints of the success that we are actually achieving, very few people notice and very few people follow. In my case, I was lucky because my visible strides were noticed by a number of institutions and organizations. For instance, in 1998, I was given the Business Woman of the Year award by the Executive Women's Club. And I'm happy to say I was the youngest recipient of the award at the age of 31. I think the judges could not believe the amount of obstacles and challenges that I had overcome, which is why then it's important that against all odds, you have to succeed as a leader. For instance, in my case, there was lack of access to finance, there was lack of access to markets, there was lack of access to the right intellectual capital that would enable us to deliver the service that we had to deliver. We did not have international connections, but we grew from a small box job in one corner office in Amtata, and we had offices across all provinces of South Africa, and the business was doing very well with the right level of intellectual capital and all the key components you would expect to see in a successful business. Another key component of leadership is the principle of interdependence. As a leader, for you to succeed, you must make sure that you embrace the principle of interdependence. For instance, for you to grow, you depend on a number of senior executives within the organization to deliver the service on behalf of the firm. So to build a brand, you cannot build it single-handedly, but building a brand is as a result of a collection of consistent service delivery in a particular form and manner by a variety of people at a given point in time. That is the only way you can achieve your brand. For you to excel in that, you do need to listen to Stephen Covey when he talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people, because one of them is a principle of interdependence. It means then you will need people as senior as you are. You will need people who might be thinking differently. You might need to embrace diversity. You will need to embrace transformation, and you'll be able to learn to deal with different interrelationships that are required in order for you to succeed, because people are not cut out in one package. And it's very important then to know that the success in leadership, it's about the people who will be coming from various areas and who will all have a common vision of achieving what has to be achieved on behalf of the greater good. In 2004, we were very pleased because we were awarded the top emerging female-owned company of the year. That was quite exciting because one of the key responsibilities of leadership is to make sure that you shine the light and you become too inspirational to the other businesses that are coming up and looking up to you, especially in a South African context where we were the first generation of the female-owned businesses, particularly in the professional services sector. The following year, I was awarded with the Eastern Cape Achievers Award in the finance category. And this was an excellent award because it was recognizing the people who are coming from the Eastern Cape and who were succeeding in the other parts of South Africa like Johannesburg, Gauteng, which is seen as the most difficult province in which to succeed. The beauty of this award is that year, I sat back and realized that for me to be here, it is because of the guidance from my mother. And at that stage, people were keen to award those who were on the front line without understanding what has built you. So as a leader, it's always important that whenever you get recognized as a company, you are able to award and recognize the people who have helped you to succeed. Because remember the principle of interdependence. You can't do it alone. And in Xhosa we say, Umntu ngumntu ngabantu. In my case, in 2005, I sat back and realized that for me to be where I was, it was because of my mother. She was alive. She was 8 years old. I called her to the stage and I personally handed over the award to her because that is the only reason why I received that award. It was not because of the certificate I had, but it was because of the personal attributes that every leader needs. The issue of resilience, the ability to persevere, the hard work I had to put in, the commitment and the determination, and all those things. I said it publicly in front of everyone else to say those are the attributes that I learned from my mother. And she really appreciated that award. As a leader, you must always strive for a win-win approach. Again, Stephen Covey covers this extensively in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Because whatever you do must be able to benefit others, because whatever that makes you win but makes others to lose is not sustainable. So in our case, we have tried to apply this in many instances. And I was very pleased in 2008 when the African Women Chartered Accountants Forum awarded me with a Woman of Substance Award, because the feeling was that out of all the strides that we have made, out of all the successes we have done, we have actually been able to add substance in the lives of others that are around us. As a result, there were many CAs that had followed our footsteps. There were many CAs that even qualified or were created because of us being there, and there were many businesses that have actually succeeded because of our input. So the win-win had actually worked for us, and I would wish that every leader keeps that in mind. I was quite inspired by that. As a result, in 2011, I sat back and I decided that as a firm, we should start a thought leadership process and initiative that will enable others to learn and be able to excel more. And this we could actually do in various ways, but we decided to start audit committee conferences because we also felt with the transformation that was taking place in the country, most people were getting into the audit committee space, which is one of the critical spaces in the governance area, where they needed to be equipped with information, they needed to be kept updated, and it was our role then to start to provide knowledge and be resourceful to the people of South Africa. And we also did the Integrated Reporting Awards because it was important that we should continue to take the lead as South Africa when it comes to the international space, even in integrated reporting areas. That's why then we started to do the awards of the top 40. We did the state-owned companies, and we increased it to the top 100 companies that are listed on the JSE. And we are very excited and pleased that because of those initiatives as a firm, we have really contributed towards the excellence in the reporting that's done by South African companies, both in the listed and public space, and we are actually acknowledged by the world. And to show the importance of thought leadership in any leadership position or leadership responsibility, we also decided that when you are the first generation and there are people behind you, they have got no way of understanding and learning from your mistakes and be able to excel as the second generation in doing things. As a result, my authorship of the 2 books, the first one on audit committees, is to help audit committee members to learn from my more than 20 years experiences, the traps that I fell into, and the things that should be avoided, and the lessons that I've learned to make sure that anyone else who comes in as an audit committee member is able to learn from those mistakes. The second book, which is actually focusing on boards, it's again under the principle of thought leadership, so that as people are getting into the corporate governance space, they know there is someone who's able to tell them, these are the traps, this is how you can excel, and this is how you can actually cut the experience gap that currently exists between you and the person who has been a board member for the past 50 years. Above all, as a leader, you must always act with utmost integrity at all times. This will enable you to make sure that whatever you do, you are not guided by personal gain, you are guided by the right thing. And it will also make sure that you as a leader, you are self-accountable in the sense that whatever you do, you have to make sure that should it be seen or known publicly, it will not embarrass you, because that is our own self-accountability that we should adhere to at all times. And on that note, we were very pleased as a firm when in 2014, I was awarded an overall professional integrity of the Year award by SAPSA, which is South African Professional Services Awards, because of the role that we as the firm have taken to issue the right opinion, irrespective of the threat of us losing the business, irrespective of the friendships that we were going to lose at the time, because integrity is doing everything that you know is supported by professional standards, and if it were to be known publicly, you will not be embarrassed by it. So we were very happy to be able to receive that award as a firm. There are many success factors to leadership which cannot be summed up in one session, but all I can say is that as a leader, you have to be sure that you will have resilience, you will have perseverance, and ultimately, when no one else can see the way forward, you must have your internal flashlight that will show you the way forward when others are giving up on you, because in that way, you are able to lead your followers to the right direction. And lastly, integrity, integrity, integrity. This cannot be overemphasized, especially in our country and right through the world. If you can make sure that all our leaders, both in the business, political, and academic areas, all act with the utmost integrity at all times. Therefore, the success we'll achieve through our leadership efforts will be sustainable and will provide a benefit for generations to come.